Alright, so welcome back. A big 460 saw went down on me the other day, and basically what happened is this front stud pulled out, completely pulled out of the case itself. So this is kind of like an Achilles heel, you're done, you're down for the count situation. When these big bar studs come out, what a lot of people will do is helicoil them, and I've already helicoiled this one, and it yanked the helicoil completely out. So I'm down for the count. 460's down. As some of you guys already know, because the first video I put up, kind of pitiful now if you go back and look at it, was on replacing the rear housing section here, fuel tank and all, because I had cracked it through the handle. But as some of you guys know, this one's a big bore kit. So I took the original piston off. We'd mixed up some bad gas and it burned it up completely, and that was about 10 years ago. This saw was originally an MS 460 by STIHL. It was purchased by a tree trimming company in Raleigh, North Carolina. Then I ended up getting it second hand after that. Once the bad gas took out the piston, ordered up a big bore kit from Bailey's. If you're not shopping at Bailey's, go check them out. It's Bailey's out there, Bailey's Logging Equipment. They're out of somewhere up in the Northwest, but anything from pants to helmets to ropes, anything you want for ARPR stuff, they're a pretty good retailer. If you want to know the testament of a big bore kit from NWP, this one's been on here for 10 years, and I've run the saw hot. I've run it extreme temperatures all over the map, and usage as well. Typically when I'm doing firewood, it is a stack of slabs, a stack of logs, and we're just chopping right down through the middle of it. So the thing gets some pretty adverse usage as well as felling trees and the normal run-of-the-mill brush cutting. So this jug's been on it for 10 years. I don't know if you can see in the video, but the crosshatch is still visible in this jug assembly. So it's still pumping along, it's still doing pretty good. Now that I've got it off, I'm probably going to polish the intake and port the exhaust a little bit, being that everything's still good. The piston itself, the piston actually is in really good shape, and we've got good resistance on the bearings and the magneto coil area in there as well. The reason all that had to come off, like I said, that stud pulling through, you can't just weld this stud up. It's magnesium aluminum alloy in there, so this whole case half has to come off. Hence, I had to pull the jug off. On these older STIHLs, the case splits right along that seam right there. So this assembly right through here, just the bare assembly, would cost you about $350 through STIHL, maybe a little bit more. I was just bidding on an entire lower crankcase, brand new NOS, new old stock, on eBay. That thing went from $194 up to almost $300 in less than 2 or 3 minutes on eBay. So missed out on that one, still looking. But what we ended up with, I found a friend of mine ended up having an old 440, and the 440, it's been all taken apart. It's what these boxes have got in them right here. But the 440, as you can see, it was pretty well smoked, but the bottom end is in good shape, so we're going to big bore that thing. So the reason I called you together today, I've heard a rumor running around about using a 460 jug or 460 big bore jug on a 440 lower end. Pulled it apart and it won't fit. So I've seen some videos of some guys with those saws. They run beautifully, but if you're going to use it out of stock components, you got another thing coming. Here's the trick. Number one, this is the head off the 440. This is the head off the 460. Turn it around so we're doing apples to apples. They're physically, the bolt pattern is different. So if you're going to use a 460 jug on a 440, you got some machine work to do, plain and simple. The bolts are also a different size too. The 460 runs a much bigger bolt than the 440 on the head. That's a 440 head bolt or jug bolt. That's a 460 jug bolt. They still take a T25 Torx bit, but the diameter and the length is vastly different. And your bore and stroke are a little bit different too. 460 stroke is 35 millimeters closed, so that's your protrusion on your piston. So when the 460 is all the way down, you use 440 as a demonstration. When your 460 is all the way down, you drop your rod in there, you're looking at 460, 36 millimeters to all the way up is 72 millimeters. The 460 on the other hand closed is 35 up to 72. So your stroke is really not a problem through here. Your wrist pin is where you're going to run into your next problem. The wrist pin on the 440 right here is 10 millimeters. The wrist pin on the big 60 over here is 13 millimeters. 13 millimeter wrist pin and a 10 millimeter wrist pin ain't going to be able to live in the same hole for very long. So 10 on the 440, 13 on the 460. 440 stock piston diameter across is 50 millimeters across here. On the 460, now granted that's a big bore kit, the 460 is running a 54 millimeter piston. And then a 440 piston skirt, so from top to bottom you're looking at right here's 40 millimeters, and the 460 is actually a little bit shorter. It's 36. So overall, you've got 4 millimeters worth of piston travel running up and down in here. That's going to be different. So how that's going to line up with your valve, basically, it's two strokes. It doesn't have valves, but your actual blowhole and whatnot else, I'm not entirely sure. But if anybody tells you that they slapped a 460 jug on a 440 saw, you got another thing coming, because they physically will not fit unless you're machining out those holes. And which bolts are you running at that point? Because like I said, these two are not going to live in the same hole for terribly long, because you can physically see that the bolt holes do not line up on the crankcases. So that being said, I'm going to use this one as a school project. So the guys are going to put this one back together next week, and they're going to put a big bore kit on this one. So what do you get from an NWP big bore kit? You get your piston and your jug assembly, of course, which, like I said, that one's been on there for 10 years. That's a pretty dang good run. You also get these piston rings that are in there. And I got to admit, these rings are more reflective of a car or an engine piston ring. The ones that are in here for the stock ones are really super thick. And the ones on my old 460 over here, there's a lot more rings. From last I've heard, NWP runs these with ductile iron, so there's 4 rings in here, and in your stock steel are only 2 large rings. So I don't know, your choice on that one, but I will say that that NWP kit has served me well for a lot of years. Inside the kit also, like I said, the piston's up inside here. You got your hole for your decompression lever. You got your spark plug, jug gasket, and if you want to block off that decompression lever, you're free to do so there. Alright, that's enough about that. There's the unicorn for you, 460 440 hybrid combo. So if I get access to a machine shop, I may dilly-dack around with it some more. But thanks for watching. We'll get these guys put back together and get them back in action next week.